Hello, this is Tom and Carissa on Tentacles, the podcast from Crown and Reach. We are feeling our way through the murky waters of strategy and operations in an uncertain world.
And I'm sitting on the other side of you today.
It's
feels
weird.
Very wrong. Maybe we'll have better chat as a result.
Sure, let's find out. So it's like an A/B test with absolutely no way of measuring it, no stakes.
You love an A/B test, don't you?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You used to be all about the A/B tests.
I was all about the A/B tests.
And you still are, just in certain very limited situations.
Yeah, you've got to use them appropriately. Bounded applicability, always. But you can't A/B test your way to taste. Which is or to finding out about people's situations and what they're really going to buy. That's another important point. And that's what we're going to jump into today.
Oh, good. I was like, where's the segue? Is there a segue coming?
Can't you see the enormous crowbar? But yeah, I've been reading a book which was recommended by good old Cedric Chin from
He's
Common
a source
Con.
of many good things, isn't he?
He's very good. And he shared this book, and his billing for it was that he thinks this is the first really new, good innovation framework since Jobs Be Done. Actually.
That is a bold claim.
Bold claim. And now I'm reading through the book, I can see there's actually some really interesting ideas in there. And it's both exciting to see them there and also a little frustrating because they sort of are gesturing at exactly the same thing that's in innovation tactics. I'm like, we could have done this.
Innovation tactics being your card deck, available with tip decks.
Yeah. So we can talk through some of the links there. And it's also a fascinating study in how just having these ideas, having these frameworks, however simple you make them, and the people from Heart of Innovation have made them really simple and graspable. That's not the hard bit. The hard bit is the emotional, psychological barriers that are in the way, stopping people from doing it.
Yeah, it's actually persuading people to take action that is different to perhaps their default settings are.
Yes, exactly.
And having not read the book, I'm very curious to hear your take on how the book enables that.
Cool. So I think the biggest and strongest idea in it, which we'll jump straight into now, is the not principle.
The not who's there principle.
That's right. Who's there? Innovation.
I've done that joke before and it's still funny second time.
That will never not be funny.
Okay, so the not principle. Yeah, I definitely stumbled over that.
Yeah, and I like that the people who wrote the book say that they made it deliberately like back to front, weird,
make it
you
sticky.
Stop.
Yeah. There's definitely there's a sweet spot where something is weird enough to make you do a double take, but then doesn't take too much further explaining.
Yes, but it does always require a little bit of cognitive load, which is a trick from the complexity world as well. Trigger cognitive load if you want people to think about things at all. And the not does that because you have to do this reverse. But anyway, the point is, value propositions are logical and sensible, and everyone loves a value proposition and everybody uses value propositions. And we think that if we can get the right value proposition, then people will buy the thing from us. But it is completely underpowered in terms of a prediction. Everyone's got a value proposition, but most businesses fail. Right, everyone has a value proposition that makes sense, that they take to people and people say, yes, that would be good, and then they don't buy it.
Exactly, and I think that's what I eventually found really frustrating about the sort of work that I was doing about a decade ago, which is if you are skilled at messaging, you can always stitch together a very sensible sounding, very persuasive sounding value proposition for, why your product or service is going to slot neatly into somebody else's life and help them become a better person, etc., etc., etc. You can totally always reverse engineer that.
Yep.
But most of the time, whose principle is it that 90% of everything is shit?
Theodore Sturgeon. Sturgeon's law.
Sturgeon's law. So the reality is most things out there actually don't they don't need to exist. Nobody needs them in their lives. And actually, coming up with value propositions for those things can be quite depressing.
It can. And what we've seen this before, we've talked about this before as well, and the people in the book agree. value proposition is also ego stroking for the people who are building the product. Saying, look how valuable this product is that we're making. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you time, etc., etc. All you need to do, though, is flip yourself into the position of somebody who is buying and look around at all of the products that exist that could save you money, could save you time right now. You just go on the internet and they follow you around in adverts. And there's millions of them. And how many of them do you actually buy?
Right.
And how many times can you even realise that there's going to be a time saving or a money saving available? It's just not actually something that drives you to make decisions.
Right, yeah. I mean, most of the time, most of the stuff we do in our lives, we're happy with satisficing. Yes, we know if we made a switch to something different, it could be a bit better. But it's just not worth the hassle. And that is just true for more than 90% of things, isn't it?
Easily, yeah. And so what the people in the book discuss and what innovation tactics is all about as well is effectively, I mean, it's not exactly tricking you, but it's moving the focus of your lens, the focus of your attention away from your products and towards the situations that people are dealing with. And that's where they come in with this not, because what you're looking for ultimately is a situation where for someone to not buy your thing would not be okay.
Yeah, it's just a kind of dramatic reframing.
Yeah. But it's so much stronger than it would make sense for them to buy your thing.
Yeah, well, I think the whole, it not being okay, and this is what you've mentioned to me previously, it kind of encompasses a lot of nebulous things that don't fit into some neat formula. So it's like, why would it not be okay? It would, if they didn't do this thing, it would alienate their friends and family.
Yeah.
It would,
people would look down on them.
People would look down on them.
They would feel like they were betraying their own values.
Right, so it really kind of goes much wider than just, it doesn't, it makes or doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't make logical sense in some way or another.
Massively so. And so, yeah, a couple of examples from the book, actually, which I think are really strong, which illustrate this really well. There's the company, the startup which the people who wrote the book founded, which led to them going on this journey and thinking, well, hang on a minute. All the right stuff, we did it all the right way and it didn't work, so something's not working here. I like that sort of thing. That's where we came from. So they founded a company and they discovered a clever way to handle botnets in the early 2000s, which are computer viruses effectively that go and hide on computers and then execute distributed denial of service attacks or do all sorts of horrible things. So it's malicious code that sneaks onto your computer and stays invisible but does stuff for the person who's designed it. And back in the early 2000s, these didn't have a name yet, but this university project found a way to detect them, remove them, protect from them. And so the people who were starting up the business, they went to places like eBay and they had a chat with eBay and figured out that it was costing eBay something like $40 million a year to deal with the effects of these botnets, the fraud that was perpetrated, the cost of crashed computers or whatever else was going on. Like it's really expensive and horrible, and nobody wants malicious code on their machines. So it all makes perfect sense. And when eBay said, "Well, look, how much would you charge for this?" The founders did what founders do and pulled a number out of their bottoms and said $150,000 a year, and the eBay people were like, great, when can it be ready? The sting in the tail, the twist, is that eBay never became a customer. They worked it up, they made the product, they added the features, they made it brilliant, and eBay never signed that deal.
Maybe this is a somewhat irrelevant side point, but it reminds me of the mom test that we talked about a minute ago. Like, isn't the better question to ask, what would you pay for this? Isn't that the whole point of the mom test?
Well, that's part of the point of the mom test, but even what would you pay for this is difficult. What the Damballa story, what they use it to illustrate is that they were actually getting all of the good signals that even the mom test tells you to look for.
Okay.
It wasn't, hey, do you like my product? These people were actually saying, how much is it going to be? When can it be ready? Of course we want this. Of course it makes sense. All of the signals were there that this was going to be massive. Mm-hmm. And yet the company never signed eBay, struggled to sign most customers. Like, it didn't do terribly. A sensible value proposition got them to I think it was 12 million ARR, but they couldn't get beyond that. And they ended up shuttering the company and just giving up because it was too much work. And they tried all of the stuff, changing the people, changing the marketing, everything changed. What they realised in the end was what was missing was authentic demand. And that's what they call it, authentic demand. Demand that is there and authentic, not just manufactured or you should wash their hands. And he pushed to make that happen in early hospitals and made a difference and had demonstrable evidence that his new way worked. And yet he was ostracised and died in penury. He couldn't make it stick. And then something like 50 years after his death, suddenly everyone started washing their hands.
And where did the 50 years later authentic demand come from?
So what happened was Louis Pasteur. So we got the germ theory of disease, which beat out the miasma theory of disease as the dominant theory, the scientific theory that explained why things were happening.
So you're saying that there was even more logical evidence, but it's still kind of... I'm struggling with that example.
What happened is, but this is the interesting thing in the world, that means that some things are okay for people to do and some things aren't. While we thought it was the miasma theory of disease, hand washing, irrelevant. It's miasma, it's gases that transfer disease. Instead, you should wear the plague doctor mask to keep you safe.
Okay, yeah, I see.
But as soon as germ theory of disease catches on, suddenly, wow, now everyone realises, I've got germs all over my hands. Now it's not okay not to wash your hands.
So in this particular example, it just so happens that the major narrative switch happens to be a switch towards a more accurate narrative and that, like a more logical thing.
Well, it's a logical thing, but it's also, it changes the context of use of the innovation or not use of the innovation.
Okay.
And basically what it did was switch it. So now everybody knows that it's the germ theory. Everybody knows that you've got germs on your hands.
So it's weird to not wash your hands.
Exactly. Weird and unacceptable, socially unacceptable suddenly. And that was the switch. And this makes, I think that the point that they're trying to make is you can go and hunt for authentic demand. And authentic demand exists where there are gaps in a situation. So the thing that they use and they get all their founders to use, that after they had this failed startup, which was a big struggle and a big learning experience, they went figuring out, well, why didn't this work, etc., etc. And they came up with their principle, not, etc. And they started an incubator, like a startup incubator, and they put a load of different startups through it. And it's brutal as an incubator, I think.
Before we go and talk about the incubator, I would like to just clarify. So you're talking about where there's gaps in a situation. How is that different from, like, quote unquote, identifying unmet needs in the market? Because it sounds very similar to that, but I'm assuming it's not the same as that.
Yes, not quite the same as that. And it's definitely worth, I think, reading the book and digging into it more, because I think what's good about their model or their way of going, their framework, is that it is quite subtle and it makes you stop and think. And so a tool that they get all their founders to use, I have to say the incubator, so I'm going to explain how you go and find these gaps. They put a load of founders through this incubator process. And what they make them do is create a situation diagram. And what was interesting is they introduced, this is based on the business model canvas, at which point I was like, oh no, not the business model canvas. But it makes sense for modelling a business. But, and it's useful for that, isn't it? We've seen some good business model canvases. We've used them in the past. What it's not good for, a business model canvas, is figuring out a startup. Because
it assumes you have something that's already working.
Yeah. And if you've got something that's already working, you can explain it.
It helps you clarify it, explain it better, spin out different marketing based on that.
Yeah. And it's super comfortable for people who are innovating to do them because it's fun. You get to dress up like a business that already works when you don't have one yet. And if it looks right, then maybe it'll work, right?
Ooh.
Hence massive failure rates. This is what we see in the market. So the team at Heart of Innovation, they did effectively what we've done in innovation tactics with methods like documentary conversation and task landscapes and multiverse mapping, all of that sort of stuff is about what does somebody in the world actually do? What's their actual situation? What's surrounding them? What's the equipment they're using? Who else is there? What matters about that, etc.
So they kind of tied it all together in a way that makes it quite easy to follow.
Yes. So they took the business model canvas and they said, well, what if instead of doing a canvas of the business, we did a canvas of the customer's situation? We'll take the value proposition out because it's useless. We'll flip it round and say, what's the situation of the customer? And once you've got the situation of the customer, what you're then doing, you can't see everything either. So you're just writing down, I can't remember the 4 things, but one of them is equipment or technology that they're using to do a thing. Another is people or relationships. Another is channels by which they access certain stuff. And the other is, I can't remember, but you have to read the book to find out. But really simple, just 4 boxes. And what you're doing is cataloguing what you know and what you find out as you go and visit people, meet people. But then you have to use your brain to think, well, hang on a minute, where might there be gaps in this story, in this situation? A way of illustrating it might be, if you are a student going to university, you need a timetable to know where you're supposed to go. And if you lose your timetable, you have a gap. Now, that gap could be filled by a digital calendar or a physical timetable or a PA, or, there's all sorts of options you could pick to fill that gap. But that gap being open does create something that's not okay.
It still sounds a lot like an unmet need. Is it just a different way of talking about the same thing?
I think it is a different way of talking about the same thing. Yeah, but it's what it helps you to do, or I think what they push for, which is the other thing that's perhaps different, is what's the word? What's the word when you are when you have equanimity about something?
Apathy? No.
Apathy or like disinterest. People just feeling generally kind of neutral about stuff. The problem with unmet needs is we've seen this, I think, in every single company we've been at, every single founder I've ever known. You can look around in the world and you see millions of unmet needs.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's a kind of meaningless phrase.
Yeah.
It's like, it's an unmet need, but maybe that doesn't actually matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, nobody needs to meet that need. Everybody's fine. Satisficing or just, typing with one finger at a time. It's not a problem. It's all good.
Yeah. That's the example we use, isn't it? Yeah. They don't know they've got a problem. They're just walking around like regular people, typing with one finger at a time.
It used to be you.
It was, yeah.
But Tom actually spent several months teaching himself to touch type at age 30-something, didn't he?
Yeah, because you showed me there was a gap. And I had to fill the gap.
It's my proudest achievement in my life.
And it was great. Now I can type quite quickly. But it's good. Anyway, there's a thing which is, most of the time when you talk with most people about their situation and the gaps that you think they have, ultimately they're just a bit disinterested. They just don't really care.
And I think this is where, maybe this is jumping forward a bit, but when you told me a bit about the way that they encouraged the kind of research interviews to happen, is pretty different to the default way.
Yes.
So it's, I'll try and summarise and then you can correct me, but you have to do how many of these like conversations with people?
So in their incubator program, like basically you've got to go and the weeks, they have a cadence of like running week by week, but your focus as a founder in the program is to have several conversations a week, like 2 a day ideally, with people in your target market, and make a situation diagram from every one, so you update your situation.
And the crucial thing is you're not allowed to talk about your product or service at all.
Yeah.
Do not mention it. Don't mention the war. Don't talk about what you're making. Just try to find out about what's going on in those people's lives.
And the people who run the incubator, they banned anyone from pitching any product ideas when they join the incubator. They don't want to know. Because they know that any instinct they have, any feedback they give will be wrong and will bias you. So they say, don't even tell us.
So how do they pick who comes into their incubator? Just a random lottery.
They actually put a lot of steps in place to avoid any bias. So they wouldn't allow names or pictures or videos or anything that would give any clues about gender, race, etc., etc.
And you're not allowed to ask about the product or service.
No product or service. So I don't know how
What's left? What is there if not product or service?
Maybe what they're thinking about is like, this is what we would do if we were going to set up an incubator. We need to know who your audience is going to be,
right?
And how you have contact to them.
It's good.
And why you think there's a problem.
Totally, yeah. So it's I'm being a bit facetious, but yeah. So it's, I guess they are looking for what is the thing that you care about. And like maybe your motivations for like caring about those people. Why do you want to help those people? And how are you thinking about it? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. Nicely different.
So it's nice. I do appreciate how they have identified the cognitive biases and the problems that occur, which block founder success, and then they've used those principles to design this system. I think is very nice. It's nice. So anyway, you were talking about they have this person who comes in with an idea, but
they don't want to. They're not allowed to mention the idea.
No, don't mention the idea, but the idea is in the space of trucking. They already had a trucking business and a network and everything, so they could get access to people, and they have their idea that they would like to work on, and so the incubator person is saying, right, great, your only job now, go and talk to some truckers. And so the person said, yep, that's a good idea, and then doesn't do it.
So truckers being like long distance delivery drivers. Yeah, pretty much.
Haulage.
It's a very American kind of concept. Truckers.
Yeah. Well, we have them in the UK as well.
Why would you call them a trucker?
Lorry driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was based in America. So you've got truckers and lumpers and shippers and various people who play roles in this ecosystem of getting goods around the country. They also, I found out that America has got very strong dock worker unions. So relating to something we talked about on another one about containerization, they've actually resisted a lot of the containerization stuff in the States. And as a result, they have dock workers who get paid, etc., and unions who are very strong. And various shipping routes are now avoiding American ports.
Wow, yeah, okay. Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Isn't there?
That is beyond our pay grade.
Yep, that's fun. So this person's supposed to go and speak with the truckers, doesn't go. The next week, same conversations happen again, doesn't go. The next week, same thing again. 6 weeks it took before this person went and actually just spoke with truckers. It wasn't like he was shy or didn't know any truckers. He could just show up and talk to truckers, not a problem.
Right.
But this is the point they realised, and we've seen this for sure with founders and with ourselves. When you've staked a load of your reputation, your money, your time, your identity on an idea, it is really scary, the idea that you're going to go and find out that idea doesn't work.
Right, or even just if you're convinced that your idea is the right idea already.
Yeah.
And why would you waste your time going to, find out something that you already know, that your idea is the right idea, right?
Of course it's right. We should just build it.
So sometimes there's a bit of both. It's the sort of fear of, finding out that you're wrong, or actually it's like you're convinced that you're right, so why waste time and effort?
Yeah. Both of those are classic founder type situations, aren't they? And often it's a situation where they absolutely are right. Like the guy with this trucker idea had seen something in the trucking industry that was absolutely bananas as a way of operating.
So he was right that there was a situation gap, but he was wrong about the location of the situation gap.
Or wrong about whether anyone cared about it enough to pull a product into their lives. He thought the truckers would care. When he finally went down there and started chatting with them, he realised they were indifferent. That's the thing. Indifference is the thing. Indifference is the default state. And so the thing that the Heart of Innovation people coached their founders to look for was non-indifference. And again, it's this like back to frontness of it. It's not niceness. It's not saying that's a good idea. It's genuine signals of non-indifference. When he spoke to the truckers who had to go through this really just bizarre process with phoning up a line and then writing numbers on a check and then handing it to someone else, who then had to phone up a line and write more numbers on a check, etc., etc., until finally money was released. It's all to do with people not being able to defraud each other, or it's protective mechanisms that had grown up over years of shipping things. He spoke to the truckers. He spoke to the laders, who are the people who haul the stuff, lumpers who haul the stuff off and on. And they were the ones who had to communicate through this weird check system. In both groups, just total indifference. They were fine with it, didn't bother them. It was when he spoke to the shippers that then he got the first signal of non-indifference, which was somebody offhand saying, well, it'd just be nice if I could sleep through the night. And then the little aerial goes up, what do you mean? And that was a clue that there's something there. There might be authentic demand. What it turns out was happening, I think, was when the truckers and the lumpers were calling the line to get their 12-digit code to put on the check so they could get their money, the person they were calling was the shipper. And if the shipper didn't answer the phone, then shipments would get delayed and it was their neck on the line. So they had to answer the phone at any time of day or night, whenever the trucker arrived, whenever the loaders were unloading, which meant potentially 2 in the morning, then 4 in the morning, then 5 in the morning, etc., etc.
Right, so this guy's hunch was right, that there was something in this overall process of trucking that could be significantly better and did matter to some people, but he was wrong about where that problem existed
and who it mattered to.
Yeah.
And that's the really big important thing that I think, we've seen this again over and over again with startups. It's really easy to see something that is non-optimal in the world, but to shift the disposition, to shift it from what it is now, the status quo, to something else, takes a lot of energy, and the system often resists it. So you need to always find a way in where one person is going to care about it enough to be bothered.
Right, and it reminds me of another one of your cards in innovation tactics, and I forget what the name of the method is, but it's looking for people who come up with these wild workarounds.
Oh yeah, that's radical repurposing, it's the pathfinders.
The pathfinders, so people who go to extreme lengths to kind of get a job done that they need to get done in a way that means they're putting in a lot of extra effort.
Yeah.
In a way that is abnormal, basically.
Yeah. And that's it. That exactly that's a sign of non-indifference, isn't it? That's a sign that there's authentic demand.
Exactly.
There.
You're choosing to put in significantly more to get something done than most people would.
Yeah.
Because it matters a lot to you.
Yeah. And that's it. So yeah, in the end, for this trucker story, it did turn out that yes, more of the shippers did care about this, and they did care about it enough to make this shift and to bother about working out a technology solution. And now it's the company's worth buttloads of money and everyone happy ending,
Yay.
Woohoo! But what was interesting to realise is that the cohorts of founders that they put through this process, it's brutal, because it is just realising that you're wrong about stuff all the time and struggling with your blind spots and your biases. And they would have a very high rate of people not getting funded after the cohort. But for those who did get funded, who had found a signal of authentic demand, they were overwhelmingly successful compared with most cohorts.
Right? Was it 90% of everything is shit? So that means a lot of people are not going to get funded.
Yeah.
But I guess it's bringing forward a problem that would have happened sooner or later, isn't it? Eventually, you will realise that your business idea there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So, for God's sake, bring it forward as soon as you can, rather than having a sort of slow death march.
That
eats up years of your life.
Yeah, and that was exactly the thing that the founders felt, because they'd done 10 years on Dambala and it had just never really worked. And they were like, we don't want anyone else to go through that. There must be a better way. And I think, really interesting, this one is. is kind of cool.
That is really interesting. It's that my little inner cynic is like wondering now, how would somebody game the application for this incubator? It's like any measure that becomes a target ceases to be an effective measure. Whose law is that? Somebody's law.
Oh, that's Goodhart's law, but it's the Strathern's reframing of Goodhart's law.
That's why I can never remember this. It's Strathern's reframing of Goodhart's law. We need an acronym. But yeah, so I sort of think it's interesting to just wonder how will people start to game this very ungameable sort of application system for joining this incubator.
It's a funny one because you're only cheating yourself, aren't you? But people will do it anyway. People will good-heart it, whatever happens.
I had this hunch with B Corps. Do you remember when B Corps first started being a thing?
Yeah.
Must be about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And it seemed wonderful at the time, and I was like, oh, I could just see where this is going to go. And I think, sadly...
Has it gone there?
Well, I think it's there are now companies who are getting B Corp accreditation where I kind of know enough about the workings where I'm like, I feel like they might have like wheedled their way into that one by doing a little bit of gaming. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of them are still worthy.
Yeah, I suppose it's an interesting one. I think if you did wheedle your way into this sort of, I think they don't do it anymore. I think the incubator called Flashpoint has either shut down or it doesn't have the original founders, etc., etc. But it was, from the sounds of it, it was so brutal to the sort of founder who wants to just sit there tricking themselves that they've got something real. They would have a bad time, really bad time.
So it just didn't have enough mass market appeal. I mean, that kind of adds up then.
Yeah. But
it's ungameable and you can't cheat yourself, and therefore it didn't go on to become a massive incubator.
Yeah.
But that's great.
Exactly is I think it's exactly the point of this whole thing, which is like, it is easy for us to think, I certainly thought, wow, if we could just get the ideas out there and people could understand this is what you need to do and this is how hard it is, and you need to think back to front and care about the context of the user, etc., then people would just get it and they'd start doing it. But what the incubator experience shows is, no, even though they shared these ideas really simply with people who'd signed up for it and really wanted it, it still took enormous cultural pressure to get people to take these things on honestly.
Well, that's interesting. But so the incubator's shut down, but right, so the additional facet to the story is not only did they just stumble on it, but they stumbled on it while they were actually chasing some other dream.
Yeah. And that's true with all of the sort of, whoops, we were running this way, but the real opportunity happened to just tap us on the shoulder and we happened to notice. So the example that is quite nice from the book is a company who'd been making something called a fish finder. This was for recreational fishermen. The idea is you could have this fish finder and it'll help you scan under the water and see where the fish are. And they were doing all right. It's a little bit cheating, isn't it? But they were doing fine-ish, but they kept trying to change the feature sets, kept changing the value proposition for their fish finder all over the place, and they couldn't make any difference to sales. It was just people were just buying one sometimes, maybe, and it wasn't really going anywhere. And they threw loads and loads of effort at this for years and years and years. And then there was this chance moment when someone who was related to marketing, I can't remember the details of the story, but basically someone who was related to marketing and knew people who did a bit of fishing realised that the fisherman part of recreational fishermen wasn't the important bit. That's where they were focused, was the fishermen. Mm-hmm. What was important was the recreational part. And what was important was what was happening for these recreational fishermen was they were going out at the weekend to go fishing and they were bringing their family along. And their family were bored out of their minds on this boat and moaning and whinging all the time. And that made the fishing expedition not very fun. And so, and what soon becomes clear is the authentic demand, the gap. If the fisherman goes out and has a nice weekend fishing but doesn't catch quite as many fish as they could have done if they didn't have the fish finder, that's fine. perfectly okay. They're perfectly happy. But if they go out for the weekend and their children are whining the entire weekend, that's not okay. They haven't had a bad time. It's going to make it harder for them to keep fishing, and it's just not been a nice experience. So what they then did, what they realised was the gap is that this tool is not for the fisherman, it's for the fisherman's family.
Get them involved.
Get them involved. This was before LCD screens. They came across this. So they had to go around the world to find someone who could make a screen that was visible in the daytime, in the daylight. And they built the device with the first LCD screen and used their fish finding technology so the kids could play like a game of spot the fish on this device while the dad was fishing.
Oh, that is genius.
And then suddenly they found a way to not try to force their way onto one boat at a time, maybe, but each boat was buying 3 or 4 of these things. They were flying off the shelf.
Wow.
And that's the sort of when you find authentic demand. Lovely. Which brings us back, I think, I think there's another fear. I certainly feel this fear sometimes with our stuff, because I think we've got good methods and services and products and ideas which do work and do create value for our customers. We have a value proposition that is incredibly powerful. And the fear that comes along with going and checking the situation and understanding what the real authentic demand is, well, what if it's like that and we're not actually helping the fisherman, we are helping the fisherman's kids, and what we need to build is a toy instead of something that is like a serious device.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it reminds me of something we've talked about many times before, and that is like something that companies like ours are struggling with, is actually being able to have those conversations with people, right? That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Like having those situational kind of exploratory conversations is hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just go down to a sort of trucking depot or whatever you call
or
it. Or
fishing tackle store.
Yeah. Maybe we need to just go and like break into some CEOs' offices.
Yeah, maybe we need to start playing golf or something.
Oh,
that's what they all are, isn't it?
Okay. I mean, maybe, yeah. This is another topic for another day. But yeah, this basically is just one of many barriers to entry of like following this method and having these difficult conversations to figure out where you're wrong about, you know, where there is or isn't a situation gap.
Yeah. Then there's that question, isn't it? What if you find out that the identity you thought you had isn't the identity that's going to work?
Right.
And are you okay with being that sort of company? There were engineers at the fish finder company who were not delighted that they were no longer building a serious device for fishermen.
Right, and I think that's where, in a way, like being a small consultancy, like it's just 2 of us. Yeah. We have the ability to do it in a kind of longitudinal way, right? So we've been building this business for a long time, and we have the ability to kind of stay very closely connected and make small changes based on how each engagement goes, based on client work that's, you know, won or not won. And that it does mean that over time we are building up a picture of where we're wrong about where we think there's a situation gap or an opportunity, or however you want to put it.
Yep.
But it's a long slog, right?
Oh, it's a long slog.
And it's the bigger the company, the harder it is.
Yeah, totally. Having to, because once you've built up a load of company and a load of momentum around doing something, then to change it is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, like particularly if you've taken investment around a particular thing, and yeah, God, there's just so many ways in which you find yourself in chains.
Yeah, and the thing that I think was interesting for us is even without all of those official chains, there's still chains. There's still like but we've put so much effort into that thing. It's there, and it's really nice to just remember that that's exactly the same for the people we're working with. And we have so many conversations, we have systems for how to handle it, and it's still hard. So God knows what it's like for other people.
We're ending on a high note, are we? Get the book. Maybe the book will change your life.
Maybe you'll read it and go, but that's easy, that's trivial, I've done all that already.
That's drop dead likely, that is.
Yeah. But I'd agree with Cedric. I think one thing I'd say is the book is a little baggy, and it's a bit like the language doesn't excite me, but the ideas are really cool.
That's
go
kind
in
of
with
the
your
ultimate test for a book, isn't it? Like, do the ideas carry it even though the writing is not great?
Yeah, that's it. And it's something to add on one topper. Rob Fitzpatrick, who wrote Write Useful Books and set up the Useful Books community and all that, he makes that point very early in Write Useful Books, which is nobody recommends a book because look, you should totally read this. It doesn't have any typos and it's really nicely constructed sentences. No, they say, right, but they do recommend books saying, actually, this is a bit baggy. It's not brilliantly written, but my God, the ideas will change your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing to aim for.
There we go. So, do we need to wrap it up somehow?
It seems pretty wrapped up
What
to me.
can we put in the show notes? Can we put some useful stuff in the show notes?
Yeah, well, we could put a link to Cedric Chin's public articles about this and just send you over there. And I think I'll see if I can think of anything else. Otherwise,
we'll put a link to innovation tactics, so you can come at it from lots of different angles. And a link to the heart of innovation, obviously.
Yeah. All right
go.
then. Enjoy.
Bye.